Morning. We're going to get underway on the hour in about 3 minutes. Give it a little bit of time. We've got a lot of people registered for this morning's session, and give them a chance to get here. I see some new names in the chat room, so let me welcome you if you haven't been visited Rick's Picks. I'll mention that there is a easy opportunity to do that. I offer a free 2-week trial subscription, and if you simply go to rickackerman.com, you can take advantage of all of the features and services at Rick's Picks, including the chat room, the trading room. There are actually 2 rooms. One is what I call a trading room, and it is where our participants put out trading ideas in real time. It's a busy morning. We're having a very interesting Friday, interesting in the sense of the Chinese curse, living in interesting times, I'm afraid. But and there's a separate room called the Coffee House where the discussion is a little, it's more informal. Let me show you the actual rooms here. Let me make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing. Okay. Here is the trading room, and we've got a few things going on today. Just a casual trade. Let me go back to some charts here. We're looking at VXX, and typically the trades that I put out with cheapy puts and calls are very popular. So VXX, I'll show you a picture of what we're trading. This is a we only buy call options in VXX. The only trade we ever do is when VXX seems to be bottoming at a promising target. Here, this is not exactly perfect for reasons I'm not going to go into, but I think there's a good chance to get into these VXX calls. If you, I typically recommend doing this with the idea that you shouldn't spend any more than you would on a scratch-off lottery ticket. So a few bucks. I'll show you the calls themselves. And we can be happy that we're getting them for 14 cents today. That's where I had suggested bidding. But if you look here, you can see that we might have paid $1.10 for them a week ago, or as much as $1.60. So it's a long shot bet. And we're going out to November 8th on these calls. I typically don't like to go too far out in time. There are a couple other things going on today. We had a trade on. This is one that some subscribers reported doing. We were long in gold from here, from the green line back last week, and we managed to ride it up for this was a $3,400 trade on 4 contracts for anybody who followed the guidance that I put out. We had one trader in the chat room reporting today that he got into a new trade just at the bottom of today's wild histrionics. And we're still holding a position in GTX corresponding in gold. And I'm going to show you something that hasn't yet triggered, that if you're fascinated by the NASDAQ, we've got a very promising target up at 8221.75. If you want to trade that using the Qs, in other words, you don't like to trade futures but like to trade an equity vehicle, the corresponding target to 8221.75 is, I believe it was 1999.94. So this looks like a very promising target to me. I rated the trade an 8 on a 1 to 10 scale, and that one in gold that produced the $3,400 profit in a week was only rated 6.9. So I think we're very likely to get a tradable turn up top there. Typically, I don't like to get into options trades unless I think they're going to be profitable within about 90 minutes or so. meaning we tend to buy puts and calls when the underlying vehicle is at promising swing points. So with that, I'm going to take my own image out of here. It might be a distraction, and just we'll get on with it. This is, as I mentioned, a request session. So those of you who are here, I'm assuming you understand that this session will be driven by your requests. It's not unusual that someone should say, Rick, could you take a look at such and such stock? And they'll come back a month later and say, hey, I made a ton of money. You hit the target exactly. And you'll see if you take the trial for subscription for sure, and you hang out in the chat room for a bit, you'll see how accurate these swing point forecasts can be. We usually shoot for turns within pennies. So let's get with it. We've got requests here. First one from Michael, which is XBI. I don't know if that's his actual symbol. All right, it is. And this is the S&P Biotech something or other. Pete, let's take a look at a kind of longer view. I like to see the big picture before I get into forecasting. And here I want to just find out something about the downtrend. We've had I guess a bear market in this thing, but let me see how well this thing is moving to our drummer. Marching, I guess is the verb there. All right, so it turned about where we might have expected. That red line is what I call midpoint hidden pivot, and it's simply the calculated midpoint of, I've got an A, B, C, let me get the D here if I can coerce TradeStation into D target down at 57.55, and along the C, D leg, the most logical and likely place for a turn, especially if the uptrend, the bigger uptrend is going to continue, will be from that midpoint pivot. Here we breached it pretty decisively, and I think that's definitely a yellow flag. I would, if this low here had been down just a little bit lower, this XBI would actually be what I call a mechanical short if it hits the green line. It's still a short if it hits that line, and just let's say less promising. I'd be careful there. We have 6 different ways to get into a trade using the hidden pivot method, and I would use a very risk-averse way to get short at that green line. But as you can see, on any chart at any given time, there are uptrends and downtrends going on at the same time, but in different time frames. So to take the larger uptrend, let's see what that looks like. All right, and this shows pretty good promise to get at least to the red line, the midpoint pivot, 87.72. So notwithstanding a cautious short that we might have attempted, or we might attempt based on what you saw on that last view, you've got a promising potential move here to 87.72. If it pops through that red line decisively, meaning closes above it for 2 consecutive days on the daily chart, or trades perhaps around 89, 90 in that range, I would say the odds are pretty good that it's going to get to at least the pink line. That's what I call a secondary pivot, or maybe even the 102 target. So it's a mixed picture, but those are the 2, let's say, controlling patterns that I'm looking at. We've got a request here for GDX, very popular vehicle. With Rick's Pick subscribers, good kind of equity-based vehicle for playing gold with a little bit of leverage, because this is measuring gold stocks rather than bullion itself. And we did get into GDX. Let me show you the actual recommendation, so you might judge for yourself whether you would have gotten in. But GDX, it said that, well, I put out a chart here. Here's the chart, and we were going to get in. The C low hadn't been made, but it got made at a price that would have gotten us in. The C low occurred somewhere around here, which triggered us in at 27.03. And we're still in that trade and just kind of hanging on. GDX has been a little bit crazy today. It did not follow gold slavishly, not by any stretch, but we've got a nice profit in the trade, and I'm just going to hang with it for a while. Typically, or much of the time, we do these trades using small patterns with commensurately small entry risk, just to establish an entry position. We'll take profits right away. And one thing I want to share with you, it's really the best way I know to manage risk, and that is to take a little bit of profit early on in a trade. It's going to put your trading brain in that relaxed space where you just tend to make the right decisions. So that's what we're doing here with GDX or anything else you trade. That's not a hidden pivot method trick. It's simply a good trader's trick to take even the smallest profit, just take a little bit of the house's money off the table, and you'll find that it greatly enhances your judgment when you're managing the risk of that ongoing trade. All right, so GDX, you can see it's had quite a, we'll take this as a consolidation, but it peaked back in early September, and here we are in November, and it's still has yet to launch, but we're on board anyway, just in case it does, and nicely profitable just to cushion this trade. So at a minimum, where's it going? This is not a great point A for this pattern, but I'd give it a minimum 31.10 if the rally continues. The key resistance here is 28.64. That's the midpoint pivot, and if it pushes through that, that would raise the odds of more upside there to 31.10. Request for AG silver. This is First Majestic, also very popular. It looks pretty much the same as the gold chart, the GDX chart, except that we've got a lower low down here. This is a nice little place to set up a buying pattern. It's called a counterintuitive trade, and if you'd like to find out more about that, I would strongly suggest you take the hidden pivot course. But it's a great way to get into a trade, and it goes opposite what you might do instinctually. We've got a breakdown here, but again, it's a very reliable setup for some great trades. First Majestic, I'm going to take a really conservative ABC pattern here to project a target, and we've got one up at 1157. Typically, we look to see what happens the first time these rallies hit that midpoint, and if it impales that red line and just shoots right through it, it almost guarantees that you're going to get to the D target. In this case, First Majestic struggled at the red line. That was implying it would be a struggle eventually to get to the target. But the big Bertha target, if we come down here and just ask ourselves what's possible, I would give you minimum upside to 1198. That's going to be a very crucial resistance. And if it pops through, you're going to see First Majestic at 1505. Request for UGAZ. All right, this is a 3X long vehicle. I'm not a big believer in 3X and 2X. They seem to me like sucker bets. They're it makes you think, well, if you're right, you may as well be right in spades and make 3 times your money. But basically, these vehicles are just they're created by sleazeballs to entice the rubes, as Carnival Midway games do. And we don't kid ourselves. When you're trading 3X options, these things all go to zero, and they reverse split them all the time. You can see, if you'd been around and asked me to look at this back in June, I would have said we've got a good buying opportunity at the D target of this A, B, C, D pattern that I've drawn. But you can see that it's, well, actually it did get off the launching pad, and even though these moves don't look like much, we had more than a doubler here when this thing got up to that line, but it took a while for it to pay off. But you had a good place to get into the trade and get a little bit of move, maybe take the position off on the first rally up to around, well, 17 and a half right there. That's not bad, actually. That's on a percentage basis. That's like you're making a third on that. Request for TZA. You could just look at this and say it's just in a dirge. I don't know. I mean, you can trade this certainly, and I'll give you a place where you can get in. Well, I hate to give you two places, but there are two places that are relevant here to bottom fishing in this thing. One is happening as we speak. I would say just test the water with a 41.08 bid. It's been as low today as 41.21, and I think we should have gotten closer than we did. Then the low again is 13 cents off where I would have predicted. So I wouldn't rush to buy this, but if it breaks down through 41.08, we raise the point A of this pattern to project a lower low, and I would say 38.90. Ordinarily, I would say back up the truck there and buy them. But the only problem is that our hidden pivot target, our downside target there, is coincident with this low that occurred back in September of 2018. And that means if we're buying down there, we're going to bump heads with all the village idiots, riffraffs, and hoi polloi that are counting on that low to give this thing a nice bottom, or at least a test of a possible low. So it's still, I think it's still a buy, but more speculatively than it would be without this low here that everybody's going to be so interested in. The term hidden pivots refers to support and resistance levels that are not generally, they're not obvious, they're not on other traders' radar. All right, let's take a look at AAPL. I'm not quite sure what that is. That is American Airlines doing what they do best, which is treat their customers, well, not going to get into it. The last few flights I've had on American were not impressive, and neither is their rewards program, which is one of the ugliest bait and switches that I've come across with any of these airlines, and they're all run by sleazeballs. The worst of them being Bill Frank, who took Frontier, the world's best airline, and turned it into garbage. All right, so let's see. We have here what I call a mechanical shorting opportunity, and the pattern we would use to get ourselves on board. It tripped the signal at the green line earlier this week, and we didn't quite get to cover it at the red line as we might have hoped to do it. The short's still a little bit profitable. Looking at a somewhat bigger picture, which is mildly bullish, you want to be trading the smallest ABC pattern you can. That's really the most cautious way to get in. As we speak, it tripped a theoretical buy signal there at 30.42 for a shot to at least 31.39. So there's a little bit of a trade there. Typically, we use these signals, not the signal corresponds to something called Lindsay's Trident, which was a popular trading system back in the early 70s. Larry Williams taught the Trident for the inventor of it, the author, a guy named Charles Lindsay. And the problem with Lindsay's Trident is that if you get in at the green line, everybody and his mother wants to get in there for instinctual reasons that I'm not going to get into here, but it's along the ABC pattern. It's just the most enticing spot to get in. So you get in there and no buyers left. It just sinks like a stone, stops everyone out below C. So that's why I don't use the Trident entry pattern I use it, but not in the same way that Lindsay used that green line, the point X. So I mildly like American Airlines here. I'm not expecting it to get above that big high that occurred back in July, but there is potential here to 33.91, and the buy signal has been tripped. And if we're actually looking to get into the trade, I go down to something really small, and you can see that if we got in on this pattern here in 30.42, we've got a stop loss of about 95 cents there or so. We're risking 95 cents on entry to get a stop loss below there, below point C. But if we do the trade on the 15-minute chart based on the trigger that we're seeing on the daily, then we can use a teeny tiny pattern like this one right here. Let me come down a little bit more to show it to you. The trade we could have done using one of those 6 entry methods that I described in Rick's earlier, or that I made reference to earlier. We had an entry at 30.14 with the stop loss 30.01. So we're getting a chance to ride on the mother ship here just by taking a little shuttle pattern. Let me see if I've got that right. It looks like I missed the correct point A. No, I'm trying to, all right. So we had a 15-point entry risk rather than like 95 cents. We could have gotten in this morning 31.6. Take half of it off at 30.30. That may not sound like much, taking a 14-cent profit on 50% of a 4-round lot position. But again, when we do these little what I call camouflage trades, the goal is to simply establish a very low risk entry point, and with any luck, this thing will keep going, meaning it'll be heading toward the pattern of Big Bertha here, the mother ship, a target up at, will be up around here, 33, 34. So we're risking just 15 cents theoretical for a shot at a 2.5, 3-point gain there, and you figure out the risk reward. We can get it very enticing. All right, here's one. I didn't even know that coffee, I guess you have to assume there's an ETF for everything, but I've never looked at this coffee ETF. And let's take a look at the bigger picture. It's been nasty. Let's see, we've got the pattern that draws my eye initially is right here. Let's see what it actually did. All right, so it went below the red line. That's not exactly a sign of strength. So I would give you limited potential on this rally here. And if we are trying to get a handle on it, you can do the trade here in the same way that I just described for that last chart. You simply take a really small segment, not just any segment. We want an impulse leg. We want a trend leg, A here, B there, and it needs to get past at least one internal peak there and a second peak and external there. So the little ABC pattern that we'd use to get long in this thing with almost no risk would be A, B, and we need a pullback here to a C, but I like the pattern. And I like it especially if we have this impulse leg that meets our rules, but we don't have, as soon as you break out above these highs, it's going to turn every Tom, Dick, and Harry bullish, and it's going to make the trade a little bit more difficult. So I would like to see a double top up there and then a pullback to C before I do the trade. But I like it. It's bullishly impulsive here on the daily chart, meaning that any pullback is going to be a buying opportunity. Request for Apple, and Apple is my bellwether. I'm very, very bearish. I've been bearish for 30 or 40 years, perma-bear. But these charts and the hidden pivot method keep me honest. They keep me from buying into my own opinions. These are not opinions. These are just what is. So so let's take a look at Apple. And because Apple is the biggest cap stock, the most valuable company in the world, it stands to reason that as long as it's going up, all the other stocks, it's going to drag the broad averages higher. So as bearish, I could give you 20 good reasons why the Dow should be cut in half right now, but I don't trade that. I trade my charts. And in Apple, we're using a target of 286.89, I think it is. Let me take a look because I've had this target out for a while. All right, where's Apple? I can never find things. All right, Apple. All right, we were using a 248.48 target. That's right there. But I had said that if it gets past that, well, say hello to 283.97. So that's where Apple is going now. And I'm just not going to get real bearish on the market until Apple gets to 283 and change. So that gives you a pretty good handle to trade. Your bias should be bullish, and let me see if I can find that. Yeah, this is the Big Bertha pattern in Apple, and not a bad point A. The BC is what I call locked. There are no other choices we could have made as to BC. So let me take off a few lines here, and there's our 283.97. Regarding what I told you earlier, that price action at P is predictive, meaning if Apple had simply impaled that P, it hit it and went a little bit above it, and then it really sold off like a mother. It took a real dive. So P is definitely working there, but it took a struggle to get through it, meaning that it wasn't going to be a romp right to P. So we could still have a little waffling, a little fudging around here, canoodling before this thing gets to 283.97. But on days like today, you tend to think this thing is just hellbound to get there. This is a weekly chart, keep in mind, so that even if it continues on the current trajectory, it could still take a month to get there. It's a pretty significant move. And again, we're making a lot of dirt balls, a lot of money here. So it's not going to happen overnight. They're just going to hang with this stock. And this is the institutional must hold, don't sell. We'll all hang together on it. So 283.97 is where it's going. And if you want to figure out ways to buy it, I would suggest taking that free trial subscription to Rick's Picks, and we'll fix you right up. Request for the Camors, maybe. I don't know if it's French. I guess we don't pronounce the S, but it's, let's take a look and see what it's been doing. Not a good sign that it took a absolutely crystal clear D target down there and it obliterated it. So I wouldn't be looking for too much on the rally here. It's not going to be the beginning of a new bull market. Let's come down to the daily chart for another view. Still, you had a moderate impulse leg right here. The way we might have traded this is off this pattern right here. That AB is impulsive. It got past two prior peaks, and at least for the short term, it's a good sign that this thing took a D target at 1704, a hidden pivot resistance, and it popped through it. So we're definitely going higher here, and the way we would want to trade that would be to get, let's see here, we'll come down to here, and let's see. All right, so the subtlest pattern we can find to trade it, we had a little bit of a counterintuitive entry here. I'm not going to get into that too much, but here's the pattern I'd be looking at to figure out where it's going. All right, let me spread this out for you a little bit, and we'll give it some more vertical. All right, so the way this thing got through the the midpoint pivot. Actually, on this daily, now I think this will be all right. It's a question of whether I want to use this A. But in either case, it went through the midpoint pivot, that red resistance line, decisively enough that I'm going to guarantee you this thing's going to at least 18.27, where it will have more than filled the gap that occurred back in July. So that's where it's going. And if it goes above 18.27 by more than, let's say, 3 cents, I think it's going to get to 18.55. 18.55 is definitely going to slow this thing down. You could do a covered right against any stock you own up there, maybe even short against the box, with a really tight stop loss, meaning maybe 6 cents. And if it pops through it, then we'll go the full Monty here. We'll go down for that A, give us a new target at 20.36. Look at JDST. I can, you can look at it and your eyes glaze over just seeing what this piece of garbage has done over it's in a holding pattern. So there's nothing to say about this. There's nothing to do. Yes, we can always trade it. If you want, let me give you one. I don't want to send any questioner away without some means of making money. So if you want to buy this Drecker, do it at 12.25. And I would put a bid 2 pennies above that, 12.27, stop loss 12.19. Even you get stopped out and yeah, it's going to turn around anyway from somewhere down there, but you really have to hold to your discipline. All right, GOOG, not to be confused with Gwyneth Paltrow's company. All right, we've got a, what is Google doing? Let me get rid of, the lines here are drawn to we would have been buyers back here in June off what I call a reverse ABC pattern. If you want to learn more about that, be sure to take the hidden pivot course or stop by the chat room. I'm going to give you some information on how you can, I've got a great deal. This is a package that will give you everything you need to master the hidden pivot method. And you don't have to do it right away. Come in the chat room, see what people have to say about it, see how they're doing in their actual trading lives before you come on board. I don't publish P&L figures because I think they're all a fraud. You can come in the chat room and find out for real whether subscribers are making money on these tricks, hidden pivot tricks. Really bum ABC because as you guys can see, we don't have much of it. Well, we'll do it anyway. Google, I'm not going to get onto a big chart like this and give you, it's kind of pie in the sky. We're looking at 1375 easy on this, but to look at it more realistically, to get some pattern that we can actually trade, I would come to the rightmost edge of the chart and see what we have there. We know that this is a good impulse leg. It got past internal, but a major external over there. And the question is, where do we put our point A? And I think we'll put it right here. Let me get rid of the big stuff. And as of yesterday, it tripped a theoretical buy signal for a shot at 1280, the midpoint pivot here. And you know the drill. If it pops through 1280, we better be looking for 1309. But Google looks just fine here. Request for gold futures. I've had this 1535.90 target out for a while. And as I showed you earlier, I guess this was before this session began officially, we bought it right down here and cashed out half for a $1,900 profit. And I used a stop loss overnight to take us out. I use what's called an impulsive stop loss, meaning if we look at the 60-minute chart and this little curmudgeon starts taking out prior lows, this one, and this one, I stopped out here. So I don't regret that. I can get back in if I want, but I just didn't feel like this wasn't a set it and forget it trade. especially because, as I'm going to show you, it didn't exactly blast through the midpoint pivot the first time it hit. It had to wait till the next day, and it popped through then, but there was a little hesitation. And then we got all the way up to P2, the secondary pivot, the pink line. That is what determined our mechanical entry right here. So we were in there, and we took off half there. We took off the remaining 50% of the trade somewhere around here. All right, so I think the trade. All right, again, you can check the math, and you can come in the chat room and see how many subscribers actually did the trade or did it in some corresponding vehicle. Some traders use the micro contract, which I don't strongly recommend. It's a very illiquid contract, but if you can do it, more power to you. Elizabeth wants to talk about Microsoft. And another question from her, should we not join your site until we know a lot about options? Now, I would say the reverse is true. If you hate options and you've never made a profit trading options, and you've heard the truth that nobody makes money with options, then for sure you should join up with Rick's Picks. I have a little running joke with my own subscribers in the chat room. It seems the only thing they're interested in is when I put out, I can put out trades that make $3,000 or $4,000 in gold, as I just did, but no one, they ignore those trades and they buy the VXX calls that I had out this morning for 14 cents. But I mentioned earlier that I only get into options positions if I expect them to be profitable, to be in the black within 60 to 90 minutes of entry. So that's as much as saying I don't go out 2 or 3 months on these options, because time decay will kill you. And don't think you can make money on them just by buying calls on a bullish hunch. Now, I've been trading options. I have a little bit of experience there. I've traded them for 40 years. I had a seat on the options exchange in San Francisco. I've written the striking price for Barron's, and I've taught alongside Larry McMillan an options course. So I know a thing or two about them. And I'm saying stay away from them. Don't even bother learning about them. Just trust somebody who knows about them, to trust their say so. Those services out there that are claiming to make money with options trades, if they're doing it, it's very labor intensive. It involves essentially putting on spreads that cover your standard deviation curve, and adjusting as whatever the options as the underlying vehicle moves around. So at best, options are very labor intensive. So my advice to you is don't even crack a book. Don't even buy options for dummies. Just stick with the service, mine or someone else's, that seems to be making money with options, because you'll never learn enough. There's not enough time in our lives to learn enough about them to make money. If you're in here and you're an options expert, there's really only one way to go. It's Charles Cottle's book, Options to Hidden Reality. That's the state of the art as far as how we make money with options. But it's a very sleazy game. The options is probably one of the biggest financial frauds in the securities world, and I know that. I have a friend who's got 5 or 6 guys working for him. Each has got a big trade station, a big workstation, and all they do is get between insanely criminal bids and offers. You may look at options and you'll see, a 60-cent bid offered at $4.10. Well, there is somewhere between the bid and the offer there a bunch of scumbags who are actually wanting to trade at a certain price. And my friend makes his living essentially discovering the price where there really are buyers and sellers in a particular series. But even he refers to the big game as the sleaziest game that ever was. And part of the reason for the options being such a big market where you never, as a retail customer, do any trades, is that it feeds the maw of, for one, free, no commissions. They're no load funds and things like that. A lot of the no load part of it comes from profits that are made by quasi-criminal activity in the options markets. So I hope I've answered your question there, Elizabeth. Let's take a look at Microsoft. And Microsoft, you gotta love, it's got such a dependable earnings stream that along with Boeing, erstwhile favorite of all the institutional money guys, and Apple, Microsoft is just a money machine. And they just sort of scoop Google. The big business really is cloud-based services. And supposedly the business is so big, there's so many trillions of dollars of unexploited profits in that business that Microsoft can come in there with, I think it was a contract with the federal government. They scoop Google there, but Google doesn't mind because, again, there's trillions of dollars to be made. I'm using a target of 153.67. What are the odds that it's going to get there? I would say about 106%. We did have a stall initially at our key point there, and I would have said try shorting there. It was a great trade, but you can see I'll give away something here. You're going to have to pay the hidden pivot, take the hidden pivot course, pay for it to find out what's actually going on here. But there is so much information at that midpoint here. But yes, we were short there, had a beautiful trade, but the way it's popped through the red line on the second try here, I would say guarantees a move to at least 153.67. And it's so, if Google is hitting that 280, what was it, 286? I'm sorry, not Google. If Apple is hitting 286 at the same time Microsoft is hitting 153.67, you better believe you want to be short up the wazoo up there, because that'll be the best opportunity we've had to short this bull market since 2009. All right, so that's where Microsoft is going. A settled issue. Do not think that you can simply buy calls, because I've said that this thing is guaranteed to get to 153.67. The calls wind up being very knowledgeably discounted as to what's going to happen in Microsoft there. Oh, and I'm going to mention also that you can use these ABCD patterns. You don't have to use a Black-Scholes model or an options research model to get fair value for options. You can, let me show you here. We'll take the options that we bought today, the 21s, I believe they were. And you can see on a graph, you can plot ABCD patterns with the options. So this alleviates the burden of trying to run an options model and figuring out valuations. This thing is going to, it looks like 6 cents, the P midpoint, so that's where it's going. So I'm in at 14 cents, and I'm not going to make money on this, but that's the way it goes. I thought it was a good shot based on the underlying VXX being at I thought we were going to get a low there. They could still pop for a little bit, but I still, you look at this, and instead of, again, using a model, this ABCD pattern incorporates things like changing supply and demand for the options itself that no model can incorporate, or at least Black-Scholes and OR don't. You're talking about some very sophisticated software for anyone who's looking at, well, you know, Goldman Sachs front running in order to sell 10,000 of these calls. All right, we've got MUX. MUX, what is that again? Let me look at it on a bigger chart here. PD means partial data, so I'm waiting for this thing to load enough data so I can see what's going on. What a mess. Your tradable pattern, the big Bertha pattern here, bullish, You don't have to be a rocket scientist to see this one. It triggered a theoretical buy signal, and I think it's got a shot at $1.94. The long-term target as high as 239 is possible, but we need to see this thing blow right through 194 before we get to that assumption. All right, so to trade the thing, we want to come down to the smallest impulse legs that we can find, namely this little stuff here. And yesterday we went impulsive A, B, C. Our entry, we wouldn't have gotten in today because it just, let me show you the entry price here. And I think it's going to get to $1.94. I like the way it looks here. But to trade it off smaller patterns, camouflage trades, we come down like this. It gave us a theoretical entry point at $1.67. So we're making big time money here with 36 bucks if we did 4-round lots and had no commissions. And I would expect this thing to pause at $1.77. If it blows through it, I think that would increase the odds even more that we're going to see $1.94. Let's see what else we have requested here. SPCE, very close to our Virgin Galactic. Is this, oh, so this must be Branson's aerospace thing. Not doing so hot today, but let's evaluate it in a bigger picture. Oh, God. All right, so they discovered a rocket ship with the cure for cancer here, maybe. I don't know. I can't. I mean, yeah, there's, if you're using hidden pivot methods and the impulse leg rule, you need fear no master. I don't care how crazy things get. They can always be judged in the context of impulse legs on the lesser charts. So here's this little sleaze bag. I mean, I don't know what kind of operators are running this show, but all right, so we had a nice entry signal there at the green line today, what I call a conventional entry. And just the fact that it got through it and went a little higher, I did say earlier, when you get that green line signal, everybody's in and it stops everyone out. Sometimes there just happens to be enough buying power there, eagerness, that even if we all get in, it still goes higher. And that's what's happening here. So I would look for 982 on this little puppy. Boeing, I hate this stock. It's a total institutional gaffe. It's a total, and the stock has no shame. You know, you could get out there, another 300 people could die on another crash. We had a story out the other day that somebody really close to the technical problem, he said he would never. This was a very experienced Boeing employee. I can't remember whether maybe he was a pilot, and he said he would never put his own family on a 737 MAX. So the stock barely blinked on that. It's has no shame. And it's really because all the institutional dirtbags have said, look, guys, we're all going to hang together on this stock no matter what the news. But yeah, it's still an open question of whether it's in accumulation here or distribution. And the bigger picture says distribution. So we'll take this pattern here, a bearish one, and it did trip a sell signal, a theoretical sell signal there. So I'm thinking it's going to come down to 324.29. If it made a higher point C, I would simply change the pattern, but I would still be bearish based on, I guess you would call the intermediate term here. Palladium. Palladium just got a nice write-up for, I can't remember what it was that it was going to spur Palladium demand in a huge way. Maybe I saw it in, maybe it was Resource World magazine as an interesting piece on Palladium this month. And I expect maybe the article itself had its effect. Had no trouble with P, so we know it's going to D. Most immediately look for Palladium to go to 962.80. If any higher than that, you're going to you're going to get to 973.30. All right, and I'm a nice crowd here today. I would say we got half of the people who were registered, which is a pretty good number. So I may do these request sessions from time to time in the morning, since we got such a nice crowd. And I did say that I was going to show you how to two things: how to get a video that shows you in more detail what some of these entry tactics are. It's rickackerman.com/demo. I'll repeat that a bit later. But if you're ready, you think to buy the package, a great deal for $997, then everything you need. It's not only the Hidden Pivot course, but it's the Wednesday tutorial sessions, which are kind of a graduate studies course, and a full year subscription to Rick's Picks. The whole works. Everything you need really to become very proficient with the Hidden Pivot method. That's at rickackerman.com/web deal. So rickackerman.com/demo to see how it all works, and the /web deal for the phenomenal deal. All right, so coming back to platinum, let's take a look at a bigger chart before all right, so this is nice. You see that on the daily chart, it blew through the D target so wickedly that we're going to see 973. Be careful up there, because this pattern is clear enough, it's compelling enough that it's going to struggle to get through 973.30. I think it's definitely going to get there with the pop through P, but we're going to get a bit of a stall up there. If it just blows through it, then it's off to the races in platinum. That would be a very, very bullish sign. Request for KC. What the heck is KC? Someone's going to have to do better. KCZ, maybe you mean the futures contract? All right, coffee. I'll mention that when you use the Hidden Pivot method, you can trade virtually any vehicle in any time frame. So, meaning, if you said, put a gun to my head and said, Rick, I want you to get long or short in coffee right here, I'd come down to the 1 minute chart and I'd find a little ABC pattern. You'd say, well, it looks pretty bullish, but I would say the last minute is bearish. We had a high there and we're trading lower than that high. So we're always looking at multiple time frames, and I like this trade. Well, there are two ways to do it. Well, there are a lot of ways to trade this right now, but I just want to mention that if we want to trade coffee and keep risk to a bare minimum, then we get on the lesser charts and use a tactic that I call camouflage trading. This is a wicked little pattern here, but I'm going to go with it anyway. I think it's going to go to 103.45 and stall right there. But I know you're not looking for the 1 minute chart. You're looking for a bigger picture in coffee, and coffee is how people from New Jersey say coffee. All right, so the important thing here from this daily chart is that today's high, 103.20, just exceeded this double top here, so it makes this whole rally from this low to wherever it tops here bullishly impulsive. So this is a nice signal that coffee has flashed today. Your trading bias should definitely be bullish. Request on Bitcoin. I put out a signal there, and the trade went on in a week, in a few days really, to make it was a $2,500 winner. The trade was a buy, what I call a mechanical buy. That's one of our 6 entry methods that we use with the Hidden Pivot system. And we bought down here at the green line, and we're still in the trade in theory. And it gives Bitcoin upside potential to 21,032. And where was I? I was reading, actually Bloomberg of all places had a pretty interesting article out there yesterday on Bitcoin, and it talked about how Bitcoin is moving relative to Tether. Tether seems to be the crime syndicate, the vehicle of choice for sleazeballs to get in and out of big dollar transactions. Typically what they do is they buy Tether and they convert it to Bitcoin or whatever. So Bitcoin demand has been influenced by Tether, where there's some pretty big markets. I don't know enough about Tether to know why the sleazeballs and the syndicates all seem to want to trust it right now. But this article also mentioned that the resistance at 10,000 looked all but impenetrable. So the high there was 9933. So we definitely have 10,000 as a factor. And as far as we popped through P the first time, but we came down to give us that mechanical buy at the green line. So I would say, even though I put 21,032 out there, the one thing I'll share with you about Bitcoin is, yes, I'm just a yellow journalist. I like to hang headlines out there that at least capture the attention of my readers or my would-be readers. So when I put a target out there, 21032, I was, yes, it was an attention grabber, and it's a bit Hurstian in a way of, starting the Spanish-American War here, just on not much. But I'm not in love with that 2103 target, even though, yes, we had a nice mechanical buy signal down there. It's going to be a struggle getting there if it gets there at all. But you can see we can trade it really without putting too much on the line. And I don't know myself really what I tend to think the Bloomberg article overestimated the resistance at 10,000, but I could easily be proven wrong. So I'm just waiting for that, waiting to see what happens. How do we need for this thing to pop through 10 grand? Just to say, okay, I'm wrong? No. We look for the same things. The hidden pivot method will get you on the lesser charts to give you a more finely nuanced sense of what's happening. So here, I would caution the Bloomberg guy who said 10,000 is where the whole world wants to sell this. To me, this thing's just, it's not going to be held back by 10,000. But we can do the trade anywhere we want. I'll come down to the 4-minute chart where I know we don't have too many riffraff hoi polloi village idiots competing with us, and we can do what I call a mechanical trade. Again, that's one of the 6 entry tactics that we use. I'm not going to give that one away, but if you look at the demo, rickackerman.com/demo, it explains something about these mechanical trades. The nice thing about the mechanical trade is that the entry doesn't use a stop limit. It uses a limit bid or to get long, or a limit offer to get short. So that's why I really recommend, if you're going to trade Amazon or some stock that's out of our range price-wise, you use the mechanical entry, because we're buying it as we did in Bitcoin when it pulls back to our bid. So the mechanical buy has that virtue, or let's say the appeal of it is you're always getting into the trade with a limit bid or an offer, meaning even in something like Amazon where your slippage can be enormous, it'll tick one place and then the next tick it's $3 lower. We at least know whether or not we're getting filled on the order. So that's, mechanical trade is a great, come to the chat room yourselves and ask subscribers, how's a mechanical trade working for you guys? All right, we've got a request for EHTH. All right, again, if you want to learn about the mechanical, and I've got some other interesting stuff for you, just rickackerman.com/demo. And if you think you're ready to sign up for the Hidden Pivot course, rickackerman.com/web deal. All right, so let's take a look. EHTH is the eHealth Inc., kind of a little bit of a pretentious, I don't know what I mean, there's so many sources of good information for health issues on the web. I don't know what this company does, but I can certainly tell you where the stock is going. All right, so we come down to here, a lock BC, and it gives us a target of, if I can get that, interesting. All right, so today I would give you a yellow flag. I would have said do a covered rate if it hits 71.19. It actually topped today at 71.21, 2 cents above that. So the stall there was predictable. And if you want to know why I didn't use the lowest low, but I took this one off, you're going to have to pay for that. You're going to have to take the webinar to find out how we draw the most promising patterns. All right, the stock hasn't exactly died since it hit that target, so it may be ready to rip right through it. If it does, I'd want to consider an ABCD pattern on a bigger chart. So let me take a look at the daily, which gives us much bigger. And the pattern we'd be using is right here, not quite A, but I'll get it eventually. Oops. And even if you're in this room right now and you're seeing things happen that you didn't request, all of these sessions, my explicit goal is to leave you all with money there to be made. Just because someone else has asked about EHTH doesn't mean you can't take it yourself and run with it. It tripped within the last few days a theoretical buy signal at the green line, 68.47, that in theory should be good for a run up to 84.23. So that's where I think it's going. We're not going to trade this big pattern, because if we simply bought here the conventional way and put our stop loss below here, we're risking $6,500 on 4 round lots. So what I'm thinking more, what we want to do here is risk 12 cents per share tops to get in. And to do that, instead of risking 6,400, but risk closer to 500, well, even much less than that. Let me show you how you do it. You come down to the 15 and you simply do your trades on this 15-minute chart. And we want to do true impulse legs, meaning if we're going to make a little ABCD pattern here, A, B, C, D, we want AB to have met our impulse leg rule. It has to get it past at least one internal and going all the way to the left, one external. There's not much of one there, but well, we would have to use that one there. So we want to qualify these impulse legs before we actually trade them. But now, instead of $1,600 per risk per round lot, we can use a small pattern to catch a ride on the mother ship on Big Bertha. So, but with the signal today on the big chart, the green line buy signal, I definitely, I'm going to be trading with a bullish bias and an 84.25 target. Got a lot of questions here today. I thank you for your kind interest. And again, I hope that I'm going to be able to leave you with things. I did Palladium already, so let's go to EEM, which is Emerging Market ETF. And let's see, we want a little more chart here just to get the lay of the land. And beautiful pattern here, so I expect I'm going to get a nice D target. We want to get the exact C's and D's here because the system gives us the capability of predicting highs and lows to the penny. All right, so this thing, there's no way it's not going to, two things, it's going to get to 43.43, but it's also going to stall there. And major stall could happen, but minor stall means that we want to open this up a little bit. We want to go to a bigger pattern to get us another ABCD. And here it is, the Big Bertha pattern in this stock. And I like the trade here. Let me tell you why I like it in a second. All right. Well, I don't like it quite as much as I would if this high had gone just an inch higher and gotten past that peak right there. So, but I think it's got a good shot at 45.26 be careful when it gets up there, because that's a pretty compelling target. We're going to get a stall, but that's where I believe it's going. And again, you've got some interesting ways to get in on the smaller charts now. Request for GTLS, whatever that is. Chart industries. Okay, good. I have no clue. This thing's in a wallow. I mean, it's a salvage job. I don't know what you. It's just going wobbly, meaning I can't guarantee you it's going somewhere or other. If I were actually trading it, I would have shorted right around here off what I call a reverse ABC pattern. But even there, reversing, we have profit taking. Well, let's see if I can. I'll give you another buy point on this. Weird little reverse. All right. So I would think I would have been looking for the reversal from 56.57, but this was not to be. If we had a bid down there, we would have missed the low by a ton. It could still come down there. I'd be less eager to buy it on the second time around. Anyway, mixed picture here. There's nothing to dislike about this thing short term, but there's plenty to dislike about it longer term. NTNX, whatever that is. Nutanix Inc. All right, so the pattern that I would use to get a handle on this is right here. And good sign that it's struggled. It's been here at the target for a week, and today it popped through it, but I wouldn't say decisively. So risky here. If you'd been long for the ride all the way up, I would say you could have done some covered rights last week, but it's showing a little bit of promise. And we can use a somewhat smaller pattern to trade. This one works, even though the BC pullback isn't much. You can see this impulse leg, A, B got past internal, but it also got past this external right there. So the little pattern gives us a shot at 30.35. And if it gets past that, if it just blows through it, I would use this pattern to project up to 32.31. Sandstrom Gold Limited. I don't know. It looks like they've come up with a hot little core sample here or something. But all right, so the obvious jumps up in our face pattern is right here. And that may not be the end all and be all of patterns. We could even come back to here to project a higher target up at, let me give you the number, 807. But just based on this pattern, which is valid in its own right, the way it gapped through P, I would say there's a 0 chance, or let's say less than 1% chance that it's not going to get at least to 750. Look for a stall there, maybe even a tradable stall shorting against the box. But if it pops through, I think you can run this target right here. And I'd use another ABCD pattern on the right side of the chart to get an alternative target. There are many ABCD uptrends going on in this chart, and we sometimes want to consider more than one of them. All right, we've got another gold favorite here, Gold Miners Bull 3X, and it was a buy down there at the secondary pivot. That's a little bit riskier, but right now it looks like well, it's good. Today we popped through, maybe yesterday we popped through that high. So this is an impulse leg. JNUG looks pretty good. You know, you can, if you enjoy hobnobbing, going out for coffee with with Carney's, then I would trade these 3X vehicles. I can't speak lowly enough of them, but let's see, the historical volatility is 118. They trade with implied volatilities of in the 800s. You got to be kidding. Or maybe the thousands. I can't really tell. Let's open this up a little bit. All right, so yeah, they're trading with at the money 70 strike. Let's see what they are. So the implied volatility on this is the historical is 118, and they're trading with fully 50% more. The options are 50% overpriced relative to the historical volatility. So if you think you can make money with that, all right. But anyway, yeah, I like the looks of this, and maybe we should, looking at a bigger chart just to show you what's possible. This is the pattern that I would use. This has not tripped a buy signal, by the way, but it would do that theoretically if we get to 71.52. Shot of 125.86 in your best of all worlds bullish case. We've got a request here for SPY. And here we're only interested in finding out like places where this 9-year bull market, 10-year bull market, 10-year plus is going to end. So this is the pattern I would use. And we've still got a little bit here, but if this gets to 310.86 at the same time, Microsoft is hitting whatever target I gave you in it, and Apple is hitting 286. That's my own version of triple witching. That's a back up the truck, short them up the wazoo, hawk the farm, sell granny's jewels just to raise money to buy puts. So that's where I think it's going. No guarantee. It's going to get there, but and I guess the way it popped through the red line on this third try here or whatever, it'll get to the target. But just be careful when it gets there. Buy some puts when it gets up there, and you'll have a shot at doing what I've said you need to do these options trades, especially puts in a 10-year bull market. Namely, you want to buy puts right when this thing is hitting the target, meaning it's going to hit it and pull back, and our options will be profitable within a minute or two of when we bought them. They're the only time that they're really enticing to me. Eldorado Gold. Let's see, we need to rejigger this ABC. Ugly pattern. Let me get rid of the little one. Oops, I got rid of the big one. I hate that. All right, so let's see. There are all kinds of ways that we could trade this. I did mention the 6 hidden pivot entry tactics. If you want to find out in a demo how I do how these actual tactics work, specifically the mechanical trade, I believe it is, and the impulse leg, rickackerman.com/demo. And again, if you've heard enough, you think I got to try this, I got to do it. And if you want to take the hidden pivot course with a great package deal that gives you a year's subscription to Rick's Picks, a year access to the recorded library, you can take the full hidden pivot course 5 minutes after you've signed up for it because it's there in recorded form. I record it every month, and the course itself continues to evolve based on how actual subscribers are doing with actual money. So when I hear from them that they're knocking them dead with the RABC trade, I put emphasis on RABC, reverse ABC trades in the session. So if you sign up for the hidden pivot webinar, the package today, you can go to 1 or 2 of the recorded Wednesday sessions, and you'll be a totally new kind of trader by tomorrow morning. So you don't have to wait for the next live session. The last recorded session from August was from September was Jim Dandy. It was an excellent excellent class. All right, so, all right, we were looking at this stock here. All right, it just popped through the green line, so we do have a buy signal today. And I think Eldorado, in theory, is a bet for minimum 1058. We need for it to get above this high here before we start building the kind of impulse legs that we can trade on the lesser charts. Let's see, Elizabeth, don't want to do options hard enough to follow your trade. You trade and work. Sprott, physical, platinum, and Palladium Trust might be similar or not. Yeah, I mean, you can use one of these Sprott ETF vehicles, but there's so many of them. There's so many ETFs that they're tending to get so thin that a lot of them are shutting down. Elizabeth, you are in France, so I guess you're past the dinner hour or getting close to it anyway. TLT had a nice buy at the pink line at the secondary pivot, and I am long-term bullish on the bonds. And I think that, let me show you interest rates, the flip side to this. If we go to the 10-year note, no, that's T-bonds. The 10-year note, I could see interest rates on a 10-year falling to as low as 1.18%. So there's still a lot of downside there. And we could rejigger this slightly. All right, that's possible too, 1.23%, but I think rates are going lower. And as far as the trade in TLT, I mentioned earlier that I'm not big on putting out bull twaddle P&L figures. Everybody says, well, you know, what's your P&L, Rick? I don't roll that way. I like subscribers to know how to make money themselves and not blindly follow someone else's advice. And also, I don't like to claim that any trade that I put out there was profitable if nobody made a profit. So the chat room, the trading room, is where the rubber meets the road, and that's where the P&L is. You'll find traders themselves actually reporting on trades they did. So even though I had suggested a buy down there at P2, I didn't have any subscribers who actually got in there. At least so far I haven't heard from any of them. But if they did, then I would establish what I call a tracking position, which is as though we'd done the trade. But I don't do any trades unless real subscribers did them with real money and report on them in the trading room. All right, so if this thing has indeed made a good low down there at the secondary pivot, the pink line, which was somewhat logical, then the bigger pattern, the bullish pattern, would be in play, and it is right here with, let me get rid of the little stuff so you can see better. All right, so we've tripped I wouldn't bet the farm on it, signal for a shot at 154.93, and we'll just have to see how it goes. But I like the fact that just the last day or two, this little pop got past one external peak there and a second one here. So that's a good impulse leg, and I see it as the beginning of a good rally here in TLT. I don't know what FCM is, but you'll have to do better on the symbol there, Dave. AA, we looked at, or AA, let me see, hold on. What about AA? Alcoa. I mean, in the big picture, it's not doing much, and I don't quite trust the bullish trend, because if this thing were so bullish, well, it did get past, this is a very minor external peak. So in theory, I can use this impulse leg as the real thing. I'd target here 24.43 on Alcoa. And I'd be careful though. If I were actually trading it, I'd want some good signals. We've got an impulse leg, A, B, got past one internal there, and well, that actually is not an external. The next external we have is up here at 22.21. So we need a little bit more of a rally to generate a new impulse leg to give us a good handle for trade up to that 24.43. Let's see, please. I think you ended with QQQ. A lot of us trade the futures. So let's take a look at NQ. Yeah, there was a great trade there today, and it still is not quite there. So let me take you to the 60. This is one I put out to my own subscribers, but because it's a futures trade, they're sleeping. They'll sleep through it. But I want to show you this trade because it looks really promising to me. And a short from 8221.75. Now, the fact of my putting it out here in a room where we've had 100 people in over the course of it is a bit of a drum roll, and I tend to believe that the less I say about some of these price points, the better they work. So that's my caveat here. If I were just looking at this and hadn't mentioned it, I'd give higher odds of 8221.75. So that's where I think it's going. Maybe not today, but I think it would be I think it's a great short with a really tight stop loss. By really tight, I'm talking 823, 824 in that range. Because when you get a pattern this gorgeous, it should give me exact hits there, exact reversals. Michael asks, what do you suggest to those who have completed your course? What do you offer to continue with your system? The Wednesday tutorial sessions, as I mentioned, the Hidden Pivot course itself continues to evolve. You can retake it for free over, I think, up to, I can't remember what the time is, 6 months, maybe a year, or certainly 6 months. But the Wednesday sessions are really where it's at, and they will give you the state of the art, really, which currently is the RABC trade. So we're refining the reverse ABC trade, and that is really my, I guess, call it an upsell. So anybody who's taken my course absolutely should be coming to the Wednesday tutorial sessions, and if you can't get to them, the recording will be up an hour or two after those sessions, so you can stay right with it. And yeah, it's ongoing ed. It's your master's degree, your black belt certification, and the question you've asked is, when you've got your black belt, where do you go from there? Well, you shoot for black belt 7th degree, 10th degree, whatever. So so stick around. And I'll mention about these Wednesday sessions. They're not chalk talk. I tell people to come to those classes ready to trade, ready to pull the trigger. And it's not even the least bit unusual for someone to be in that session, the Wednesday class, and to do a trade that crops up and make enough money to pay for the Hidden Pivot webinar. So don't come just to sit there. Come with your trading screen open, ready to do these trades, because I don't want them to be all about chalk talk and, well, here's another trade where we could have made $800 if we've done it. I'm doing these trades in real time. So you definitely want to be there, because I'm too busy doing the trade to actually do it. But anybody in the session, I encourage them to come and pay attention. But if I'm talking about a real trade, forget about what I'm saying, just do the trade. All right, so I'm gonna leave you with this one here, this NASDAQ. The pattern is so beautiful that the only thing that could prevent it from hitting it within a tick or two and pulling back tradably, meaning shortably, is my telling you all this. Having so many people in the room and my putting the trade out there. But again, if you want to find out how some of these trades actually set up, what I'm doing and what subscribers are doing, rickackerman.com/demo. All right. And if you're ready to roll, you want to sign up for the package, rickackerman.com/web deal. All right, we've got request for, did we already look at PHM? No, Pulte Group, a home builder. And this has been tricky. You know, I've got a subscriber and a friend named Mike Scher, who's in the housing construction business, and he called the top a few weeks ago that obviously wasn't at the top. We're seeing these home builders get second wind simply because we've got interest rates low enough to attract marginally qualified buyers. So it's pushing up the low end of the home builders in particular. But what a gorgeous short we have. Shorting the home builders, I think, is the best way to short the bull market itself. And all right, so let's see what we've got here. I'm going to take, this is my not exactly obvious, totally intuitive point A, and I'm going to draw some other coordinates, but I want to make sure that I get them right. All right, so we see that Pulte has popped through an absolutely gorgeous target. So it makes, the BC is locked. I have no alternative BCs here. So I need to find me a new A, and it's right down there. So yeah, you should be buying puts on Pulte right here. The predictable high I would have given you was 41.24. We topped 2 cents from it. We're not, I wish we'd been in this session a couple hours ago or a week ago. That's right, this is a weekly chart. So if we'd been in here a couple weeks ago, I would have said bet the farm on 41.24. We've come off it a bit, and when we do these options trades, we want to take half off as soon as we double our money. And shorting Pulte at 41.24, the pullback came to 38.51. Let's see how much we could have made, coulda, woulda, shoulda money. All right, so all right, so let me put Pulte in here. And I would have, since we know we're getting an exact top and we expect our options to be profitable on the same day, we would have bought the close in, but they're already expired. So we'll talk about the November 1st options. Let's see. All right, so the stock, we're talking about the 38s is a strike that we might have entertained, or let's do the 40s. All right, so let's see what the 40 puts have done. All right, we would have been buying them right here. That corresponds to that high, 41.24 in the weekly chart. So we could have gotten these little pups for as cheap as 19 cents. Realistically, we'll get ourselves in at 39 cents. So easy out for 78 cents, the doubler. And in fact, if we didn't buy them at the low, but twice the low price, the maximum out was $1.45. All right, however we did this trade, it made money. There was no way we could have lost money if we'd been in here a couple weeks ago talking about 41.24 on Pulte. So we got the puts there, even allowing for a bad fill. We're still in at 38 cents. Great trade. So we'd still be in a trade with half the puts, just kind of sitting on them, because I mean, this trade, this pattern is so beautiful. The target is so clear. We couldn't have missed on this one, but no guarantees. If Pulte pops through here, the only thing I tell you is I'm going to slip my wrists. It's just I don't know how or why it should do that. But all right, John. All right, let's see, FCX. Elizabeth, I trust you're going to want to sign up for the package when this session ends. FCX Freeport seems to always come up during these sessions. I don't know whether they're Australian subscribers maybe who are fascinated by the stock. It was a spec buy down there at the pink line, but no guarantees. I think it's going to go to 6.14. but I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt if it pops above this high right here at 1207. Let's see. Thank you for great session, says John. Great session. Thank you for selecting this time. It made it possible for me to attend. Oh, all right, good. So the daytime request session was a winner. I'm glad to, and I could see that a lot of you managed to get here, and a lot of you are sticking around for the exciting finale. Let's see. Another thank you. A beginner, do not want to do options. All right. Request. I think this will be our last. Let's take a look at WLL Whiting Petrol, and let's see what we can say about this little grifter. I would take this piece of it. This looks like a fracking stock, maybe. Fracking has had some hard times here. I think it's going to, we know it's not going to be quite as bad as minus $6.79. So we have to take the last positive number we get, 241, which is the secondary pivot. So that would be my worst case for this thing. And unfortunately, you can see that the way this thing, let me get rid of this here. Let me stretch this a little bit for you. Oh, I see, I need that. All right, and I'm gonna need a little bit of this. All right, the way that you can see that this thing took out the midpoint pivot at 1161, and it hasn't traded above it since the week that it took it out. So I think that's bad news for Whiting Petroleum. And I don't know if this is the old Whiting Brothers, but maybe a Texas company that's got fracking obligations here and liabilities. I think it's going to 241. Slow death. Sprott physical platinum. I'm not going to get back on Sprott, but here's a symbol. And I gave you a pretty bullish read on platinum, but actually we've got such a gorgeous looking pattern here that I may as well use it. So this is where I think Sprott platinum is going to 14.57. So you've got a decent move there percentage wise. It kind of guaranteed the way this thing tackled the midpoint pivot, the red line. And that's it. Before I wish you all a pleasant goodbye, I want to say once again, if you want to see how I do some of these entry, just see what I'm doing, rickackerman.com/demo. And if you want to sign up for a great package deal to give you everything you need to know to become a Zen master of the hidden pivot method, rickackerman.com/web deal. So that's it. Thanks very much for your kind attention. I do appreciate your coming here in the first place. That's it. We'll do another one of these sessions. We're always doing them now and again, and I hope you enjoyed today's session. I also hope that something that came from the session will make you money in the near future. So let me again wish you a very pleasant good day, and I will see you around. Actually, I'm not going to end this session because I want to take account of which issues we have covered today. All right, I'm gonna